The Legions of Athena. Chapter 5. Maximus was just having a very weird dream. He was dreaming that he was taking part in the first stage of the tournament, which required him to eat 2 tons of yellow goop to advance to the next stage. But whether he managed to succeed in this tremendous endeavor, he did not know as he was roused by a knock at the door. There was still no light outside, but Maximus wasn't surprised. He figured it was Achilles. The man always started their training sessions much before the rooster crowed, so he rubbed the sleep out of his eyes and checked the time. It was still 2 o'clock at night. This was way too early even for Achilles, but whoever was outside was still pounding away at the door. He got out of his bed and opened the door and was pretty surprised to see a girl with big green eyes and noticeably feline features standing there. As soon as the door opened wide, she engulfed him in a big hug, covering his face in her reddish-brown hair. "Mia," he said once she finally let go. "Oh, Maxie, I miss that vacant expression on your face," Mia said. "Great," Maximus thought to himself. She's only been back for a second, and she's already pulling his leg. But inside, he was glad to see her again. But he wasn't going to tell her that. Instead, he said, "Well, look what the cat dragged in. Still obsessed with cats, I see," Mia said. "What? No," Maximus said. "I said that because you look like a never-mind." He stopped seeing that Mia was not really listening. She was already making herself comfortable on his bed. "Man, did I miss the feel of a real bed." "So did I wake you, Max?" she asked. "No, I mean, who could possibly be sleeping at 2 o'clock at night?" Max said dryly. "Oh, cheer up. It's not like you can't just sleep all morning," Mia retorted. "Actually, I can't," he said. "But more importantly, where the heck were you for so long?" Mia looked at him and sighed. "You don't want to know. You just woke me up in the middle of the night." "I think I deserve to know," Maximus said. Mia sat up and answered, "Why, at the High Athenian Magical Society, of course." "The what?" Maximus asked. "The High Athenian Magical Society," Mia repeated, "or HAMS as I like to call it." Maximus knew that Athens was not famous for its magical superiority. When you have technology centuries ahead of the rest of the world, magic didn't have a significant role. "I didn't know Athens had a magical headquarters," Maximus said. Mia snorted at this. "Oh, please don't make that place sound so grand. I've seen garages that were bigger. Wow, that bad. I mean, I know technology's great, but neglecting magic completely sounds like a stupid move from Athena," Maximus said. Mia laughed out loud at this. "Look at you, finding weaknesses in gods," she said. "Of course they have magical divisions, dummy. Minerva is one of the largest countries in the world. They can't just ignore magic. The difference is they usually concentrate on magic that can blend well with technology." Maximus nodded to this, but the blank expression on his face seemed to have given him away. Mia sighed and asked, "You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?" To which he just grinned. "Magic isn't just a single force, you know. It has many different branches like elemental magic and necromancy. And in my case, nature magic." "Oh yeah, you've mentioned that," Max said. "Yeah, anyway, nature magic is the branch that is least compatible with technology, so Athens does nearly no research into it. The HAMS is the only division that handles it here, which sucked for me. Staying in this castle was not that great either, you know," Maximus began to say, but Mia cut him off. "Don't even go there, Max," she said, "because whatever the case is, this is a castle with a real bed and a cooling system and a complete lack of bugs. The HAMS is not even in the city. It's in a nearby forest outside the Aegis barrier. The place was basically just a large hut with a few kooky sorcerers. So, why did they send you there anyway?" Maximus asked. They had to run some tests," she replied, vaguely not meeting his eyes. "The head sorceress there is really powerful, supposedly. Personally, she just gave me the creeps." Maximus was about to ask more about the tests, but he noticed her involuntarily clutching her left arm, where she had a mark under her sleeve. A mysterious mark that was somehow connected to her past and which she hated talking about. He realized that further questions on the topic would just put her in a bad mood. Changing the topic, he said, "Well, you're here now, and you are staying, right?" She gave him a smile and said, "Of course I'm staying with you guys. You would all be lost without me." Even though she got on his nerves at times, he was glad to have her back on the team. "Now stop standing around," she said, getting back on her feet. "Let's go wake up the others." Maximus felt like he had slept only for a short while, but when he got up the next day, it was already lunchtime. He would have slept for longer if Hedger hadn't woken him up. Everyone was already in the dining hall when he entered, but all of them looked like they had just awakened. Both Hedger and Mia had bowls of blue goop in front of them, and when Max sat down, the machine served a similar bowl to him as well. Only Rex had a plate with a large red brick on it. "How come you get special treatment?" Hedger asked. "Probably because I'm better looking than you three," Rex quipped with a grin. "As valid a point as that is," Mia said, rolling her eyes, "it's probably because you are a minotaur. I mean, you do have food habits different from humans." "You can say that again," Rex agreed. "I mean how you people eat fish. I'll never understand." "So last time I checked, I was still a sprite," Hedger chipped in. "Where's my special goop?" Mia shrugged at this. "I don't know. Maybe your digestive system is similar to ours. Well, I for one demand that I be fed with proper sprite diet instead of this crap," he said. "Which is what exactly?" Max inquired. I have no idea. I was hoping chicken wings. I'll have to find out when I see a sprite, Hedger replied. Good luck finding a sprite here, Mia said. The three of them gave her a quizzical look. What, haven't you guys noticed that there are not a lot of sprites around? Well, this entire continent? Mia pointed out. I mean, I've been traveling for a while, and Hedge here's the first one I've met. Now that Max thought about it, he hadn't seen many himself. He had seen a few back in the trenches, but they were travelers. He was pretty sure Hedger was the only one who actually lived there. What? Are you saying that sprites are extinct? Hedger asked. No, but you do have one of the smallest population among all the races. Also, the sprite communities that do exist are not in any of the places nearby, observed Mia. The look on Hedger's face told that all this was new information to him. Well, I never really thought about this stuff, he said. I mean, the trenches where we grew up housed a very mixed crowd, so I never even imagined there would be any exclusive sprite communities. Hedger would have said more, but just then something began to ring in his pocket. Hedger took out the mobile, which still had a broken screen, but at least the call function was working, it seemed. What the heck is that? Rex asked. Is that a mobile? Wow, I've never actually used one, but you can fence them for a lot of money on the outside, Mia said. The others gave her a stare at this. Yes, I used to fence stolen goods in the black market. Now can we move past that and see who's calling? Hedger answered the mobile and said hello. After a few seconds, he said okay and hung up. Then he turned to Maximus and said, It was Achilles. He wants to meet you at the palace garden. Guess he wants to know what you decided, Rex said. Decided what? Mia asked, confused. Maximus still hadn't got a chance to tell her about Achilles wanting him to join the tournament or give up his training. Fill her in, would you? I better not keep my old teacher waiting. Wait, does that mean? Hedger began. Yeah, Max said. There's no way I'm entering that tournament. Maximus had pondered over his decision a great deal. He had decided to decline the offer. He hated tournaments. Back in the army, they used to be held at least once a month. The truth was, even though he knew he was a good fighter, he just didn't perform that well in front of a crowd. It was stupid, and he knew it. But the fact was, he fought much worse than he usually did in the barracks when only his fellow soldiers were watching. He was afraid that in front of a stadium filled with people, he would just freeze. Despite the fact that the Owlets tournament was the smallest of the three events being held, people did still die. Although the match was not to death, a few unlucky contestants did still lose their lives. But what really swung the decision was the way Achilles had given him an ultimatum. He held Achilles in the highest regard, but he did not like anyone else taking decisions for him. He thought about all this as he walked out of the West Tower. Since Achilles had returned, all of them were allowed to move about the castle freely. It seems that he had to be there for the rest of them to be trusted. He was their unofficial babysitter. A pang of guilt pricked Maximus. Achilles had done so much for them, even more for him personally with his training and everything. Maybe it wasn't too much for him to ask for something in return. In fact, now that he considered it, he realized that if he pulled out of this tournament, it would probably reflect badly on Achilles as well, especially since everyone at that table yesterday, including Athena, now knew that Achilles trained him personally. Great, Maximus thought to himself. Now he was back to square one, wondering whether he should join the tournament or not. He decided that he had better talk to Achilles before taking his decision. He also realized something else at that moment. He had no idea where he was going. Maximus felt pretty brainless right then. It was the first time he had left the West Tower on his own, and he had no idea about where anything was in this castle. It was a pretty big castle. He walked down a few corridors aimlessly to try his luck, but this turned out to be a bad idea as well. After a few random turns, he had lost track of the way he had come. All the corridors looked exactly the same. He wondered how people found their way around this place. All the walls and doors were identical in every way, the same as in the West Tower. After about another 15 minutes of being lost, he realized that he would have to ask someone for directions. There were people moving around in the corridors. He had already passed quite a few, but after his experience with the locals at the banquet, he was not thrilled at the prospect of further interactions with them. Luckily, he blended in well thanks to the gray clothes that had been given from the castle. Most of the people who passed him by completely ignored him. He decided to ask directions to the first person he saw next. In a few seconds, he came across an elven woman. "Excuse me, miss, but could you tell me how to get to the castle garden?" he asked. "Why, of course, my dear," she said with a smile. "But which garden are you referring to?" "The castle has three." "3 gardens?" Well, he wasn't expecting that. Whichever's closest to the West Tower, I guess." The expression on the elf's face changed. Her smile vanished and was replaced by worry. "The West Tower? Are you one of the Martians?" Maximus nodded reluctantly to this. He could see this was not going well. "Well, he garden closest to their eyes." She began to stutter when someone else came around walking. The elf lady quickly went to his side. "Oh, Theo, thank the gods," she said like she had just escaped from a rabid dog. "This Martian wants to know the way to the garden," she said breathlessly. Maximus was annoyed by this. He had asked for directions to a garden, not for the schematics of their vaults. The new guy, Theo, looked at him. He was human and around his age with shiny blonde hair and a visibly well-maintained body. If Max had to take a guess, he would have said he was a soldier. "Why don't you leave Sala? I'll handle this," he told the elf, and she hurried away without even glancing back. "I know you," Theo continued. "You're Achilles' student, right? I saw you yesterday at the feast. I'm Theo, by the way," he introduced. Maximus was a little surprised by the friendly greeting, but he was glad to have finally met someone who didn't automatically hate his guts here. "I'm Maximus," he said. "You were at the feast?" "Yep, I'm the Tyro of Division 6, Theo replied. "So you're going to be one of the competitors in the Owlets tournament, right?" "I'm not so sure about that. I was thinking of backing out," Maximus confessed. "Oh well, that's a disappointment. In any case, let me show you to the garden. I'm heading that way," Theo said with a smile. Theo led the way as Maximus followed. After a few corridors, they started going up a flight of stairs. "Shouldn't the garden be on the ground floor?" Maximus asked. "What? Oh yes, it's just that there's a shortcut from the next floor," replied Theo. Maximus thought that this was a bit strange but decided not to push it. After all, this guy was a tyro, so he probably knew the castle well. Moreover, he didn't want to be rude to the only person in the castle who seemed to be kind enough to help. After walking for a bit more, they reached a pretty big door. "Through here," Theo said as the metallic door slid open and Maximus entered. But there was definitely no garden there. Instead, he was now standing in a huge gymnasium. The place was pretty big and had a lot of training equipment in it. Lots of high-tech exercise machines were spread across the floor. There was also a sparring ring in the center. Quite a few people were present as well. Most were training and a few were resting on the benches on the sides. Theo entered behind him and the door slid shut automatically. "Where to now?" Max asked, sensing something was amiss. "Not very bright, are you?" Theo said with a grin. "Hey, Elisha, look what I found wandering the halls." From one of the corners of the room near a few punching bags, 3 people walked up to them. The one in the center was none other than Max's least favorite Athenian, Elisha. She was flanked on either side by 2 more soldiers. One was a guy who looked a few years older to him, and almost twice his size. He had a shaved head, and a face that looked equally menacing and vacant. Maximus imagined this must be what a baby troll looked like. The other was an elf girl with silver hair and purple eyes. She had the pointy features common to all elves, along with a very pale white skin. "Well, this is quite a find indeed," Elisha said as loudly as she could. "So nice to make your acquaintance. I never did get your name, Martian." The other people in the room were all watching them now. Maximus noticed that almost everyone in the room was around his age. From their demeanor, it was clear that Elisha and the others were their superior officers. A few seemed worried, but most seemed to be enjoying the new development. Maximus looked at Theo, who had the widest sneer on his face. He wanted to punch that guy right in the face, but he was sure that it would end badly. "Hey, she asked you a question," the elf girl said. Now, Livian, maybe he's just too slow to understand what I asked," Elisha said sarcastically. "Perhaps Berg can help him out." The big guy, Berg, cracked his knuckles at these words. "It's Maximus," he said. "Ah, well, Maximus, do you know what an honor it is to fight in the Owlets tournament? And do you know why I was so keen to present you with that honor?" Elisha said in a sickeningly sweet tone. Maximus shook his head at this. He was starting to get worried. The situation was not looking good for him. "Well, I'll tell you," she continued, her voice slowly rising in anger. "It's so that I can destroy you in front of my whole nation, so that I can show to everyone just how weak and pathetic you Martian scum are, no matter which glorified cripple trained you." "What?" Maximus thought to himself. Did she just call Achilles a glorified cripple? The anxiety that he felt before was now replaced by anger. He really wished he had his sword now, because if he did, it would surely be glowing red. "So understand, Maximus, there is no way you'll get out of this in one piece, because one of us Tyros is going to break every bone in your body, that is, if you don't wet yourself when you enter the arena," Elisha threatened. Then she mocked in her fake, sweet voice. "So what do you think will break first, your body or your mind?" Maximus looked at her with a smirk and retorted, "I was thinking your necks." The moment he said those words, he knew he was in trouble. "Get him," Elisha shouted, and Berg launched himself at him. He dodged, though, and landed a kick on the back of Berg's left knee. The big guy was down on one knee now, but this just made things much worse. Soon more people around him started coming closer to fight, and he knew he was done for, but there was still one thing he wanted to do before he went down. He turned to Theo and said, "Thanks a lot," right before he sucker punched him on the face so hard it knocked him to the floor. But everything went downhill from there. He was surrounded, and Berg had gotten back on his feet again. He landed a few more punches, but to no real use. He was severely outnumbered, and soon he was out cold on the ground. This has been a chapter from Book 2 of the new World Odyssey Series, The Legions of Athena. Links to the books in the bio. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next chapter.